Hello viewers, welcome to the show. The 2014 budget was tabled in Parliament last Tuesday. Treasury Minister Don Pollier tabled the 15 billion kina budget, which is the biggest budget ever in the history of Papua New Guinea. The budget is for the first time a multi-year budget, setting out in advance the fiscal limits for the forward estimate years of 2015 to 2018. We will look at the finer details of the budget later in the show. But first, let's look at what was presented during the budget lock-up session held at the Parliament State Function Room prior to the tabling of the budget in Parliament. Dennis Herrera with this report.
The 2014 budget was tabled in Parliament last Tuesday. Just before the record budget of 15 billion kina was tabled in Parliament, it was presented during a budget lock-up session which was attended by business executives, public servants, the diplomatic corps, development partners and the media. Acting Secretary for Treasury Dairi Vele presented the budget to those present at the occasion. Juliana Kubak, Acting Secretary for the Department of National Planning and Monitoring, reflected on implementing the 2013 budget.
We are not going to give up on these investments, even though we have had a slow start this year. We will endeavor to improve our procurement and service delivery modalities and free up impediments to delivery through building on the 2013 budget principles and improving them drastically in 2014.
She also talked about government priorities and focusing on the public investment program.
This government has prioritized infrastructure investment, sub-national empowerment, SME, and agriculture support, as well as land mobilization and affordable housing and major infrastructure city program as its key interventions and overarching strategy for capital formation or capital expenditure in 2014.
She added that the government is committed to assisting neighboring Pacific countries and also preparing to host the 2015 Pacific Games. The departmental heads' presentations were followed by ministerial speeches from Treasury Minister Don Pollier, Minister for National Planning and Monitoring Charles Abel, and Finance Minister James Marape. The ministers maintained that the 15 billion kina 2014 budget will be managed well and implemented according to plan. The 15 billion kina budget is the biggest ever and is the second deficit budget for the current government.
Remember, I stood here and I told you about my deficit for this year would be 7.2%. Now, we have gone up to 7.8%. And why did I go up by a 0.6% of deficit of two reasons? One is personal emoluments overrun in the provincial administrations. The other is because of the commodity price downturn that the world is experiencing.
Now, naturally, we are also have a deficit, further deficit budget, as we are explaining. And again, as the Treasurer is saying, it is all part of a plan. It is nothing outside of what was not stated and declared in the 2013 budget, our first full-year budget of the O'Neill Dion government.
Insufficiency of money and resource is not a problem for us in 2013. In the face of a deficit budget that a Treasurer and the Planning Minister structured in 2012, for our fiscal year 2013, we have been able to adequately raise the capital to finance our 2013 budget. That is a testament to the success of our own country.
However, the ministers also pointed out some areas that need improvement for better implementation and service delivery.
The public service, ministers like me, the people, all of us go to say, look, we are little in our capacity, but we can implement this budget. We can say that implement it correctly. Cutting out the wastes, not putting ghost names in, not coming to work late 1 hour after, 2 hours after, not leaving for home earlier, not going to the pockets, not getting drunk. You talk about capacity. What capacity are you talking about? You have the capacity. You're not utilizing yourself to the full capacity that you should be using yourselves.
Let's review that CSTB process. Many of us are very concerned about how the tenders comes through. Some of the results that come through the tenders process are a little bit surprising and of concern. in terms of the value and who receives some of these contracts. It is a concern to government, and we acknowledge that. We acknowledge there are issues there. The Treasurer is bringing a review in terms of the CSTB process because it is at the heart of this service delivery problem.
Minister Pollier stated that there will be a 2014 budget deficit of around 2.3 billion kina or 5.9% of GDP. The proposed deficit will bring the government's debt to GDP ratio to 35%, which is consistent with the medium-term fiscal strategy 2013 to 2017 and the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2006. He urged for understanding and cooperation in implementing the 2014 budget by the government and private sectors.
We cannot just put money everywhere. We have to put where it really matters. But when we put the money, let's make sure the money earns the return that we all desire to achieve. You'll have had negative stories about government. All this bogus information that goes around the blogs and the internet that you've seen. I'm telling you, the truth is that this country is flourishing. We'll have to go stand fast on this solid gains we have made, consolidate that. Let's grow it. Let's implement that. Let's take ownership that this country grows because we think about our future and our children's future.
We will have more on the budget when we come back. Stay with us. If you've just joined us, you're watching Business PNG. The 2014 domestic outlook seems promising, with anticipated strong economic growth and the production phase of the PNG LNG project expected to commence. However, there will also be challenges for the government in 2014 in terms of what it has budgeted for the coming year. Improving on revenue collection is one area that the government aims to look at, particularly in terms of tax revenue.
Treasury Minister Don Pollier stated while tabling the 2014 budget in Parliament last Tuesday that it is the first budget in the history of Papua New Guinea to reach over 15 billion kina, up by 1.8 billion kina or 13.8% from 13.2 billion kina in the 2013 revised budget. Minister Pollier said the domestic outlook for 2014 is exciting as the economy is anticipated to grow very strongly, and at the same time the much-anticipated PNG LNG project is expected to achieve the first gas to its overseas customers. He said PNG's economy is expected to grow at a strong rate of 6.2% in 2014. The 2014 budget will focus on 7 key priorities. Maintain PNG's macroeconomic stability through the adherence to the principles of the medium-term fiscal strategy, the implementation of major infrastructure projects under construction, as well as the efficient expenditure of the higher levels of provincial government funding. Ensure an appropriate alignment between the construction of new roads and the provision of money to maintain them. Likewise, ensure funding is available for staff when new health or education buildings are constructed. The integration of the recurrent and development budgets in 2014 will be a key step toward achieving this. Continue to expand funding in the education and health sectors. This will include the continuing expansion of fee-free education policies, funding for vocational education, and ensuring enough teachers are available to meet increased demand for access to education. Establishment of the Sovereign Wealth Fund and consolidation of mineral and petroleum assets. Strengthen law and order, modernization of police and defense, and creation of the Independent Commission Against Corruption. Improve the enabling business environment for the agriculture and tourism sectors, as well as small to medium enterprises. Minister Pollier said total revenue and grants in 2014 is anticipated at 12.7 billion kina. The higher 2014 revenue estimate is due partly to higher tax receipts on income and profits, consumption of domestic goods and services, and on international trade. Also, it is partly due to the sale of landowner share of the PNG LNG project. Tax revenue is estimated at 9.7 billion kina in 2014, an increase of 1.1 billion kina or 13% from the 2013 revised estimate. Minister Pollier said the 2014 budget does not contain any new taxes.
There's not been much effort that has gone into actually reviewing and looking at efforts on the revenue side. And that is why I want to echo what the Treasury is saying in terms of the support of the IRC and the Internal Revenue Commission and the acknowledging that there is need for a tax review, acknowledging that in fact much is owed to our country in terms of tax revenue. There is in fact about 2 billion in outstanding revenue owed to the government.
Furthermore, on tax, Minister Pollier stated in his budget speech that the current Tax Review Committee commenced its work on 1st September 2013. According to Minister Pollier, the tax review is the first major review of the system in over 13 years. While the government is not undertaking major tax reform prior to consideration of the tax review, the government has encouraged the Internal Revenue Commission and PNG Customs to improve their revenue administration in 2014. This will raise an additional 750 million kina.
More on the 2014 budget after the break. Up next, we look at how the funds will be spent. Welcome back to the program. Government priorities have been put in place, including infrastructure, education, health, law and order, and agriculture. Though the 2014 budget looks promising, there are concerns of whether it will be fully implemented, given the experiences of not fully implementing the 2013 budget. Contributions by donors have played a vital part since independence, aiding government in delivering much-needed services to the people. Government has acknowledged these contributions, which are continued in the 2014 budget.
Infrastructure will be getting the biggest share of the 2014 budget, with an allocation of 2.7 billion kina, including 769 million kina in donor funding. Construction and maintenance of roads and bridges infrastructure is a critical area for which Department of Works will receive over 1.6 billion kina. According to the front page report in the National last Wednesday, infrastructure will receive 46% of the public investment program funding worth 2.7 billion kina. The article stated that the major projects are the Ley Port Development Project, 270 million kina, Highlands Highway Maintenance, 150 million kina, National Roads Rehabilitation and Maintenance, 100 million kina, National Bridges Rehabilitation and Reconstruction, 50 million kina, Port Moresby City Roads, 170 million kina, and Ley Roads, 100 million kina. Moreover, the government has allocated 386 million kina for investment in the 2015 Pacific Games. Minister Pollier said this is from the 2013 supplementary budget, which contains a number of saving measures realized from project underspends. Pollier said it is of regional significance that these sporting facilities meet world standards and are completed on time by March 2015 to cater for more than 3,000 visiting athletes from 22 Pacific nations from 28 different sports from July 4th to the 18th, 2015. The government will provide 838.6 million kina, including 73.9 million kina in donor grants and loans in 2014 for the development of infrastructure in PNG's 4 major cities of Port Moresby, Ley, Mount Hagen and Kokopo. The infrastructure projects represent initial steps towards developing each city as a central hub in key areas of enterprise. The government will provide 281.8 million kina in 2014 to develop Port Moresby into the commercial hub of the country. The key infrastructure projects for Port Moresby include 170 million kina for new and existing roads, 30 million kina for the upgrade of Port Moresby General Hospital, and 30 million kina to complete the upgrade and rehabilitation of Jackson's Airport. 437.4 million kina will be provided by the government in 2014 to develop Ley into the industrial base of PNG. The key infrastructure projects for Ley include 270 million kina for the Ley Port Development Project, 100 million kina for new and existing roads, and 65.2 million kina for the rebuilding of Angao Hospital under the 2013 joint understanding with the Australian government. The government will provide 61.4 million kina in 2014 to develop Mount Hagen into the agricultural centre of PNG. The key infrastructure projects for Mount Hagen include 40 million kina for new and existing roads, 20 million kina for the redevelopment of Mount Hagen Hospital, and 1.4 million kina for the Mount Hagen Rice Project. 58 million kina will be provided by the government in 2014 to develop Kokopo into the tourism hotspot of PNG. The key infrastructure projects for Kokopo include 2 million kina for water and sewage upgrades, 15 million kina for upgrade works to Tokua Airport and the road from Kokopo to Tokua Airport, and 3 million kina for the implementation of the Tourism Midterm Master Plan. Total funding for the education sector in 2014 will be 1.5 billion kina, an increase of 160 million kina from 2013 budget appropriation level. The government's key policy is free education for elementary level to national high schools, costing 605 million kina with a further 43 million kina in trust. Students from over 18,000 schools in PNG will benefit from this policy. In 2014, total funding for all agencies in the health sector will be 1.4 billion kina. Funding in this sector will support the upgrade and redevelopment of 16 existing hospitals. This includes 65.2 million kina for Angao Memorial Hospital, including 45.2 million kina from the Australian government under the 2013 Joint Understanding, 50 million kina for Angao Hospital and 30 million kina for Port Moresby General Hospital. The law and order sector will receive funding of 1.3 billion kina in 2014. The police department will continue to receive funding through its police modernization program with 69 million kina allocated for 2014. Total funding for the economic and agriculture sector is 777.9 million kina in 2014, of which 302 million kina is set aside for the agriculture small to medium enterprises package. Minister Pollier acknowledged the support of donors whom he said have joined PNG on its path to greater economic prosperity that it is currently treading. Examples in terms of grants in 2014 are: the Australian government will be providing 1.2 billion kina in grants to PNG, the United Nations over 100 million kina, the Chinese government 86 million kina, and the European Union 62 million kina. In addition, the World Bank contributed 102 million kina in grants and loans, and the Asian Development Bank will be providing loans for 440 million kina worth of mainly infrastructure projects, and the Chinese government a further 296 million kina. So with donor support, revenue collection and other means of income for the government, implementation of the budget is being planned for another year. Being a record budget, Papua New Guineans and all others who have made the budget possible would like to see it fully implemented in 2014 and not become a white elephant.
And that's all we have for you tonight. We'll have more on the 2014 budget in next week's show. If you would like to watch this episode or any of our previous episodes again, visit www.mtv.com.pg and go to our Business PNG page. Also, remember to send us your feedback via Facebook, Twitter, or email. Until then, I'm Leanne Jarari. Good night.